Hey everyone, we continue looking at films that I saw at the fest at the beginning of the month, our Reveiw-A-Palooza on the final cut. So glad you could join us today. Got one for you. Before we get there, I just want to say when I go to these fests, I always love seeing films that aren't necessarily in my wheelhouse, but I find fascinating nonetheless, especially ones that make you think. And this one is definitely one of those. It's called The Buildout. It had its Midwest premiere at the Midwest Weirdfest. It is brought to us by Zayshan Yunus. And it's a story of Cameron and Dylan. And Dylan is part of a religious, what Cameron calls a cult, but a religious group who are going to set up their own utopia, if you will, in the middle of the desert. They're separating themselves from society and want to create their own society in this remote location. And this trip is kind of like their last hurrah. But as things go along, strange things start happening. And these two really start questioning what not only they're experiencing, but if this is right for Dylan. And they're also dealing with a shared traumatic experience that they had in their past. And we see how all of this culminates into a very interesting ending to really make you think film. This is one of those that it moves along. It's a slower burn film, not quite Terrence Malick like, but still, it's one of those to where very visually stunning and character driven, because most of it is just these two individuals discussing things that have happened and doing activities and such, and peeling back the layers, letting the audience see more and more of them as they move along. And then as you see more and more of these two, it's going to make you question a bit exactly what you're seeing. And I loved that, especially the ending. The ending had me scratching my head a little bit, but it was one that after discussing it with other folks and hearing the director talk about it, it suddenly clicked for me. And I was like, wow, that is definitely an interesting take on this type of a road trip story that they have. They shot in the desert. It looks beautiful. The cinematography is fantastic in here. It has to be seen on the big screen. There's some wonderful wide shots, like this one where Cameron and Cameron and Dylan are on this rock ledge, and you can just see out into the valley, and they're talking about crystals and that. And wow, it was visually very captivating, and these characters were interesting. There was some mystery there because we're trying to learn about them and figure out kind of the dynamic. And Cameron makes a lot of great arguments to Dylan about why she really shouldn't be doing this, and seeing Dylan be so devoted to this cause, and the reason for it is their shared traumatic experience. There's a lot of layers to this story that on the surface may look like just a basic, relationship type, plot. But then if you start to think more about what's being discussed and then what they start to see, especially as things get a little more strange as they head deeper into the desert, and then they come across this artifact thing in a truck, and then things really start taking a creepy, weird vibe. There was a lot to think about at the end of it, and it's definitely a layered movie that you should probably watch with others so you can discuss later on. I am still thinking about it now, and I can see why it was picked for the Midwest Weirdfest. So thank you so much for listening. I highly recommend, if you like your surreal, slow burn, character-driven pieces, then The Buildout will be one you'll want to catch. So thank you, and as always, please tell your friends and have your friends tell their friends. We're trying to get to 3,000 subs or more before the end of the year. I thank you for your support. Until next time, remember, keep that ticket stub.